Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome back to the channel. It is now 4:45 a.m. East Coast time, August 29th. It is Thursday. We have a 16-game NFL slate. Final week of the preseason. The NFL is back, baby. We are a week away now officially from the regular season. Packers, Bears kicking it off Thursday night, a week from now, September 5th. I'm excited. Got my fantasy actual league, my main league. Huge league with my friends coming up in a couple of days. Got a bunch of other huge leagues online coming up and over the next few days, just at my own convenience, really. But I'm excited about the 16-game slate. One of the only two times, I think, all year that all 16 teams play on the same day, if that's right. I think week 17, Sunday, the last week of the year when there's no Monday Night Football. This is exciting in my opinion. So if you're here right now and you're wondering, this is the wide receiver videos for tonight. I already created a quarterback and a running back video for tonight. If you have not yet seen them, I will hyperlink them down below. They're going to be down below after you watch this one. If you want to check those ones out, you can. The reason I'm splitting them up all this time is because, well, there's 16 teams, and if I really wanted to give you the best knowledge possible on YouTube for free, it would take about 15 to 20 minutes per position, and that's what I decided to do, right? More work for me, but overall it's going to be better for you guys. If I put a video up that's 50 minutes long, nobody's going to watch that. If I put one that's 15 minutes long in 3 separate parts, then a lot more views are going to watch that, and really just it's more convenient at for your sake anyway. So before we get into it, welcome to the channel. If you're new here, my name is Sal Vetri. I do cover daily fantasy sports in the NFL, NBA, WNBA, and the MLB streets. We have to cover 3 of those today. NFL, huge slate. MLB, 2 slates. And then the WNBA, 3-game, decent-sized slate. So excited for all the sports tonight. 16 games is going to be so easy to just dominate cash games tonight. I'm not even kidding you. I will have my tiers up on Patreon later today. If not, well, later today, definitely. I mean, by 8, 9 a.m. since it's 4 in the morning. But I'll have those up on Patreon later today. That's going to be just telling you who I'm getting to in each range or each position and who I think kind of rises as the cream of the crop, if you will. So all the housekeeping is out of the way. If you could hit the subscribe button, that's the one last thing I ask. We are approaching 6,700 subscribers, and my goal was to get to 7,000 by Monday, by the first official week 1 of the NFL season, right? At least a full week of content. So it's going to be tough, right? We need a big push. So if you are watching this and you are not yet subscribed, please, I ask you, just a little push. Can you hit that subscribe button and then check out the quarterback and running back video? Starting it off right now, we'll start off with these A-listers that I would consider them in my opinion. So Jaws, J.J. Arcega-Whiteside, the rookie this year for Philadelphia, just balled out last week. 8 catches on 9 targets, 104 yards and a touchdown. Week 1, he still played and he saw 4 targets and he saw a good amount of run. So it's week 4 now. They know what they kind of have in this kid. When I list off the A-listers, he's one of the 2 or 3 that I have less confidence in, not because of his skill set, not because of what he can't do out there. It's mainly because of the time that he's going to be on the field. But if they give him the same run that they did week 1, which was about a half or so, I have a lot of confidence that Arcega-Whiteside just can do whatever he wants out there against what is going to be the starting secondary unit for the Jets today. Trey McBride is one of my more confident plays, I would say, in Atlanta, against Atlanta today. Going to be just playing against second and third stringers and going to play the far majority of the game. In week 1, he saw 6 targets, and the reason I keep week 1, he saw 5 targets, and I'm going to reference week 1 a lot just because I'm going to be very cautious with that in terms of knowing that there are players that came back from an injury or got more run in the second and third game and will impact a lot of the week 1 starter stats. But for the most part, I've already kind of filtered through those, and I will name that if that is the case. Trey McBride, he had 5 targets week 1, caught 3 of them for 42 yards, caught 3 more last week on 6 targets for 31 yards. He's going to be a guy who consistently goes out there. He did that last week on 6 targets, 3 for 31 yards, even with DD hovering like 5 to 7 targets or whatever DD Westbrook had last week. He did that even with about 3 to 4 starters, the top 3 or 4 guys above him. And right now McBride is probably battling for a roster spot around 6 or 7 if they take 7 wide receivers. He's one of my more confident plays today in terms of playing time, in terms of skill when he'll be on the field. Preston Williams is similar to a J.J. Arcega-Whiteside. Preston Williams last week did not do too much. He has not really done much since week 1 of the preseason, but a lot of it's kind of skewed. Week 1 of the preseason, he had an absolutely great week. Last week 2 of the preseason, he had about a 30 to 35 yard amazing touchdown catch that will be the best one, would have been the best one of the entire year, including the preseason, called back because he barely stepped out of bounds right before he made the catch. He had to like readjust. So that is a big play that kind of would have made him pop up a lot of people's boards as well, at least for DraftKings, DFS, for week 3. And then last week, week 3, did not do too much. So I'm actually happy that Preston Williams is going a little bit unnoticed. He is one of the best preseason wide receivers. He's one of the best younger talents in the entire league right now at the wide receiver position. I'm going to be getting to him today a good amount unless we get news that he's not playing. Quickly, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to stop in with my own quick advertisement, and really I just want to tell you about Fantasy Draft. Fantasy Draft has rake-free contests where you can pay pretty much a monthly subscription to avoid the 30% rake that Draftkings is going to take. What is rake? Well, it's pretty much the number that Draftkings skims off the top of you in tournament plays or even in cash plays, the amount that you're actually losing just to the site fees and maintenance fees. That is rake. Fantasy Draft, you can get rid of all of that for a much smaller fee, but not even that. I want to tell you about the free roll that they're doing tonight, $20,000 free roll tonight. You can enter it. Use the link down below. That link actually does help me. It's a tracking link, so if you do have interest in playing, it's totally free. You can enter up to 5 lineups. They're giving away $20,000 in prizes, totally free. The preseason is a time that you can easily win these prizes. A ton of people on our Discord, a ton of people in our Patreon last week were saying how they won for the 5 tickets for the week 1 games. So check it out. Link down below. It's Fantasy Draft, rake-free contest, and a free $20,000 free roll tonight. So appreciate it. Let's get back to this video. Jacoby Myers is just an absolute, I don't know what to say. He's a stone cold lock. He's been the best wide receiver in the preseason. This guy had 12 targets last week. I mean, he has in the preseason about 25 plus targets right now. And he's still going to be at best the number 5 receiver on this team. Now that Josh Gordon has been reinstated, they have just so much receiving depth that he's probably the 5th option. The Patriots probably take 6 wide receivers for the first time in a while just because of all the depth that they have, and they're still deciding on their 6th guy. Yeah, Jacoby Myers is going to continue to play. He leads all wide receivers in the entire preseason, not just for the Patriots, but all wide receivers in snap percentage. He played like 83% in week 2. He played like another 79% of the snaps last week. Just because he's balling out does not mean they're taking him off the field in week 4. It's not like he's their number 2 or 3 or even 4 receiver right now. He's still down the depth chart, and they have a lot of injuries on this New England pass-catching unit. Jacoby Myers continues to be just an absolute, almost cash game lock for the preseason. Keyshawn Johnson. If you do not know the name Keyshawn Johnson and you've been focusing on the name Andy Isabella for the Cardinals, start to kind of change that around. In drafts, I'm targeting Keyshawn Johnson in the last round of drafts, right before I take my kicker in defense. I'm targeting Keyshawn Johnson in season-long drafts. This man's ADP is ridiculous. This man's skill set is ridiculous. Finally kind of came out last week. And look, we're looking at right now. He had 4 targets in week 1, right? And he was playing somewhat of limited snaps, working his way back from an injury. Then last week, he finally explodes. 7 catches on 7 targets for 85 yards. I get it that Kyler Murray was playing for some of those targets and a lot of that work, but not all of it. And Keyshawn's going to play a ton of snaps in this game, if not lead the team in snaps, because 1, he's already secured his spot on the team. Some injuries have kind of helped with that. Michael Crabtree being back is not going to really hurt Keyshawn Johnson making this team. But at the same time, similar to what you're seeing in New England or Jacksonville right now, or in New England, he's like the 5th or 6th guy on this roster, kind of already on the team, made that guy, not really on the bubble watch, made the team, not the guy trying to make the team. But Keyshawn, just pure talent-wise, pure snap-wise today, he's somewhere next to the Preston Williams in terms of skill set. Jacoby Myers is the guy who is going to have the most opportunity, and he's been looking good, so he's a guy who in cash stands out as just, like I was saying, a lock. But when it comes to Keyshawn Johnson, tournament upside, it's huge today. Michael Floyd today, he's an A-lister as well, but he's kind of the bottom end of this. Look, Trace McSorley should play a lot of this game. You're not going to see Lamar Jackson out there. Then the 3rd stringer should come in, Joe Callahan, and clean up maybe the entire second half. I'm not sure how they're going to go about this, but Michael Floyd's rapport with Trace McSorley, both in the preseason and in camp, has looked really good. Michael Floyd last week, he didn't play in week 1, so we can't go for those stats, but last week, finally, after having some DNPs and just not playing due to injury, he had 3 catches for 54 yards and a touchdown. Trace keeps looking his way in practice this week. He's somebody to keep an eye on. Devin Smith, former Jet, now the turned Cowboy. He had 6 targets in week 1, so he was out there getting a ton of snaps in week 1, where it's very similar to week 4 in terms of your playing time and the actual risk you put your top players at, right? You don't really put them at much risk or play them at all. So that kind of says where Devin Smith stands. But last week he had 10 targets, caught 6 of them for 79 yards. Big interest in Devin Smith, especially in the matchup. Going up against Tampa today, he's going to have all the opportunity in the world going up against their 2nd, 3rd, and 4th stringers. Really, honestly, like their 3rd and 4th stringers for the far majority of that game. He is by far skill level way above them. Khalif Raymond. So Khalif Raymond, when I say Jacoby Myers has been leading the teams and all the teams in terms of snap percentage for wide receivers, Khalif Raymond is up there. For Tennessee, he's getting a ton of snaps. I really wouldn't have any interest in this, and Marcus Mariota has not yet been ruled out for week 4. Again, if he plays, it's probably two drives in like the whole first quarter, which isn't much. But the quarterback situation, honestly, outside of Mariota, who's been terrible in the preseason and in practices right now, has not looked good. Ryan Tannehill is pretty decent when he comes in. And then you have Logan Woodside, who's also been pretty decent and has had the most run with Khalif Raymond. So they kind of have a nice rapport. You imagine you're going to get the most Logan Woodside today, at least for the far majority of that game. He saw 8 targets last week, most of them from Logan Woodside, and then 8 targets week 1 and then 5 last week, led all wide receivers in snaps every single week. So yes, Khalif Raymond's opportunities are very similar to Jacoby Myers. That probably does not have as good of a quarterback play in terms of a Brian Hoyer plus a Jared Stidman combination, but he is very close and his opportunities will help. Now we're getting into the 3 players that, in terms of GPPs, I have so much interest in today. They are not your typical cash locks or the guys in GPPs that you can put in and guarantee yourself the points, but they're going to be far less owned and they're going to have that same upside based on the amount of snaps they're going to play. Like, I think Jacoby Myers is a fantastic play today. I personally love Keyshawn Johnson and think he's a really good play today. But these next 3 guys are going to be fantastic. So Richie James Jr., to start it off. So a couple things about Richie James Jr. Just for his own skill set, he had 7 targets in week 1. He had 4 targets last week, caught them all for 66 yards, and he's been continuously getting more and more snaps. Now, he's probably already on this team due to his special teams work, and I was talking to the DFS Bachelor yesterday on Twitter. I'm not sure if you follow his YouTube channel, but if you do, you can check that out as well. I'm sure he has preseason content up. I've seen him put some out. But right now, there's going to be no Jalen Hurd tomorrow. There's going to be no Dante Pettis tomorrow. There's going to be no Marquise Goodwin. Goodwin makes sense. Pettis makes some sense. Like, he's fallen down this depth chart, or at least that's what the reports are saying, but him not going out there makes sense because I imagine he's made this team, even though there's rumors that he's not going to. And then Jalen Hurd dealing with an injury. So right now what they have at wide receiver is pretty much Deebo Samuel, in terms of like the depth that's going to play the most, at least talent-wise, for DFS. Deebo Samuel, but he probably doesn't play the most. And then you get Kendrick Bourne, you get Richie James Jr., and you get Jordan Matthews. It's really going to be Richie James Jr., Jordan Matthews, and Kendrick Bourne battling for those final 2 roster spots at the wide receiver position. James Jr., I imagine, is going to get it. You're going to get Kendrick Bourne then playing very similar snaps tonight to Ricky James Jr. James Jr. is going to get peppered with so many more targets, in my opinion. So it's going to be better also for them because they're going to have great quarterback play. Like, Jimmy G's not going to play in this one, but then you're going to have Nick Mullins and probably CJ Beathard, since they're battling really to see who's the number 2 quarterback. I imagine they take all 3 of those quarterbacks, but really just battling to kind of solidify that they want to take 3 quarterbacks, see that it's worthwhile, and then also just who's going to be the actual backup. Beathard's probably the more athletic player. Mullins is just probably the more consistent player, or I guess safer. With that said, though, the quarterback play is going to be great. James Jr., I imagine, will lead the team in targets and snaps tonight. And then Kendrick Bourne is also a fine play. I just have more upside and belief in James Jr. Scotty Miller, I have Scotty Miller on here. He did not play the first 2 weeks of the preseason. Due to his injury, he might get cut by this team. Whoever the hell picks up Scotty Miller is going to be in a fantastic situation. This guy's a burner. This guy came back last week, and he saw 6 targets right away. Don't look into his 2 catches for 15 yards or whatever it was. Just know that this guy is Deshaun Jackson light, if that makes sense. The younger Deshaun Jackson version, the probably quicker Deshaun Jackson version. This guy's a burner, so if you're looking for a GPP play that can have 5 targets, can catch 4 of them for 70 yards and a touchdown, and catches a 40 or 50 yard bomb like Deion Kane did last week on his 2 catches and caught a huge bomb. Great play by Deion Kane. Scotty Miller's that guy. I'll have a lot of interest in Miller tonight because of a couple of reasons. Tampa Bay, since it's game 4, is not going to play a lot of their starters. None of them. They're not going to probably play much of Justin Watson, who's kind of secured the number 4 wide receiver spot. When you go down a little bit more, they have Bobo Wilson. They have Schnell. Like, they're going to give Scotty Miller more snaps than Schnell. He'll probably play the far majority of this game after seeing about the 3rd most snaps in the team last week, and that was behind a couple of players that we've already listed. Yes, big interest in Scotty Miller. Keelan Doss for Oakland. Keelan Doss for Oakland is already hyped up on, you saw it on Hard Knocks by John Gruden as being just like an absolute steal in the draft, or undrafted, does not know how he wasn't drafted, all this stuff. He had 6 targets last week after he finally was allowed to break free a little bit. And here's the thing. Whenever we reference this Raiders and Packers game from last week of the preseason in Winnipeg, week 3, the field was so bad, so a lot of the time the game was about to get canceled, they pulled all the starters out. Both teams had all the starters not playing at all. So what you're getting there is pretty much week 4 of the preseason in week 3. So we got to see a lot of things there. What we got to see was Keelan Doss being tops on the team, number 2 on the team in snap percentage at the wide receiver position last week, but very elite usage in that regard. He had 6 targets, caught 4 of them for 52 yards. And again, the quarterback played there, whether it's Nate Peterman, who's not great, but better than a lot of 3rd stringers in the league, I would say, at least experience-wise and reps-wise. And then you have Mike Glennon, if he's going to be getting any sort of extended run today. Those will be the 2 kind of filling up the bulk of the game, in my opinion, and Keelan Doss seems like a special talent. So that's a lot of A-listers. I'm going to kind of rank these players on Patreon in their own tiers. It's not going to just be tier 1 as all these A guys. No, they're going to be separated within those tiers. And as the day goes on, as we get more news, they will continue to be separated. So you can check that out. It's linked down below on Patreon. We'll quickly cover some of the B-listers, and then I'll touch on maybe some of these C's. But again, watch the running back and quarterback video. Those are going to be linked right down below as well. You can click on those. You can get over to those as well. So my B-listers, Deon Cain will be one of them. He might honestly be a C-lister, not due to talent at all, but just kind of, we saw last week his upside really all season long. He's top 5 in receiving yards in the preseason. I believe he's top 3 now. Huge touchdown last week. So he's been electric in camp. It's just a matter of, I don't think they give him much run here. So when we talk about all the guys above, I think outside of maybe a JJ Arcea Whiteside, but even then, I think he still sees more run than a Deon Cain. Cain, though, still like the 5th guy on this team when you have Campbell out there. Preston Campbell still coming back from an injury. So, like, Cain will be the number 5 receiver, so I think they give him some run, just not a ton. Javea Johnson for Dallas, he's had 15 targets through 3 weeks of the preseason. That's a little bit skewed because in the first 2 weeks of the preseason, he had 13. Then he only had 2 last week. So I do prefer Devin Smith, who's been just overall much more big play upside, been getting more looks overall now if you factor in his 10 from last week, and just seems to be more consistent as a wide receiver 1 for DFS slate tonight. Cam Sims for Washington, he should see a big bump in snaps. Oh, we're already up. We don't need to get up at 5. We got up at 4:30. It don't matter. But Cam Sims should see a big bump in snaps tonight and just overall targets. Haskins is going to start this game. I imagine Haskins plays around 3 quarters or so. And Cam Sims has been sort of his favorite target in the preseason and in practices. Now Cam Sims is going to get much more run. I doubt they could play Terry McLaurin, the rookie, at all or much. Harmon, probably they play a little bit, the rookie who got drafted a little bit later on. Harmon probably plays a good amount today. Kelvin Harmon, and I have interest in him as well, but Cam Sims is a guy who can play all 4 quarters today. So we'll talk about Harmon at the same time. He's been leading this team with about 65+% of snap percentage all preseason long. I think they continue to give him run. He was one of the later round rookie wide receivers that they took. 2 wide receivers they took in that draft with McLaurin and him. Yeah, I have a ton of interest in Harmon. My only downside, and I think the fact that you're going to get a 3 quarters or so out of Dwayne Haskins, who seems to be a serviceable, or at least a lot better than some of the other quarterbacks you're going to have paired with wide receivers today. I think that helps. It's just that I think Cam Sims is the better play there. Rashad Higgins for Cleveland. Look, this guy's the number 3 receiver on this team. It goes OBJ, it goes Jarvis Landry, and then it goes Rashad Higgins. So I have a little bit of concerns, although they keep playing him a ton. Like last week, preseason 3, they played him for the entire first half, and then some of the third quarter, he had 7 targets. In week 1, he played a good amount. So I don't think he plays much now, just because they kind of know what they have in him and the value that he brings to the table. But keep an eye on what they say for the news for Cleveland players with the overall second unit, how much run they're going to get, because he's kind of the lead of the second unit. He probably drops down to a C-lister, honestly, the more I think about it, just due to playing time. Duke Williams for Buffalo. He's fighting for the final playoff spot right now with Isaiah McKenzie. McKenzie, though, has kind of been this converted running back and wide receiver hybrid, similar to a Ty Montgomery in a way right now for the Bills. In my opinion, that versatility is going to allow him to get on the team over Duke Williams. Williams, though, showcased some of his big athletic ability that they don't really have at the wide receiver position right now in Buffalo, and he scored a touchdown last week. Some interest in him relative to these other guys, not a ton, though. Touch on some other players here. For the Rams, I do like Kadarius Hodges, who's just been really consistent. 4 targets week 1, or 6 targets week 1, 4 targets last week for 54 yards. I believe 5 targets the week before that. Just really consistent. I imagine his snaps continue to go up. The good thing about the Rams is you kind of know what to expect. They haven't played any of their starters on both sides of the ball this preseason, and they've barely played much of their second unit, right? Especially at the wide receiver position. No Josh Reynolds we've seen. We haven't seen any of the top 3 guys out there in the Cupps, in the Robert Woods, and the Brandon Cooks. So Kadarius Hodges and another guy named Mike Thomas, who finally came out last week and had a decent day, caught 3 catches for 70+ yards. Those guys would be the guys in the LA Rams wide receiving corps that I would want to own. I just don't have much confidence in the quarterback play there, so I'd probably stay away. Tevin Jones for Pittsburgh. So keep an eye on the situation. If Deontay Johnson, the rookie, does not suit up for his second straight week, now he had a really good week 2. He didn't play last week due to injury for the Steelers. If he doesn't suit up, and then you likely see less run out of James Washington, who's pretty much secured the number 3 wide receiver job, if not pushed Dante Moncrief a lot for this number 2 job heading into the season. Will be out there for a lot of 3 wide receiver splits. It's pretty much Tevin Jones is the main guy on the outside in this game for the Steelers. So keep an eye on that, because the Steelers do have really good quarterback depth. Joshua Dobbs, Mason Rudolph, and then even Hodges is not terrible. Hodges probably plays close to a quarter and a half or so today, I would imagine, maybe a whole half in the second half. But Tevin Jones will not be highly owned. If indeed Deontay Johnson is out, and James Washington, as I would expect, does not play much, he would be moving up to one of the top B-listers and potentially touch the A-lister list for me today. Emmanuel Butler had 5 targets for the Saints last week, but here's the thing with the Saints. They don't throw enough to these wide receivers, but they do have good quarterback depth, as we've been saying. Teddy Bridgewater, Taysom Hill, they're going to pretty much split up this whole game. Emmanuel Butler's going to be out there even more for this game, kind of on the bubble right now. I like him more than Little Jordan Humphrey. Came in last week, I believe his first time of action for the most part. Saw 5 targets right away, going to see extended run. I do like that. So Pearson L for Oakland, this is an interesting spot because he saw 10 targets last week. It was pretty much a week 4 preseason game, like we said, in Oakland. The 10 targets I want to look more into and see exactly who they were coming from. I'm going to go and look at some more play-by-play information. But right now, Pearson L, I do prefer just overall upside-wise Keelan Doss. Keelan Doss is going to see a bigger tick into his overall targets today after already having 6 last week. I would project Keelan Doss for somewhere around 7 or 8 targets. And Pearson L, I believe those 10 targets are going to be something that stands out to a lot of the public, but not something that I want to hop on to. Now, he's still a B-lister. He's not something I'm completely ignoring, and he'll probably move up this B-lister list as the day goes on. But in that wide receiver corps, much more interesting Keelan Doss. And honestly, Doss might even go lower owned just due to the fact that people will see the 10 targets that Pearson L had last week. I think they're good. I think they're great. But if we're talking about fantasy upside, maybe he's more of a cash play than trying to bank a tournament with him, in my opinion. The C players, I'll list them. A lot of them are contingent as ifs, like if this happens. So for Green Bay right now, Alan Lazard is in the concussion protocol. If he is out, he's been battling on the roster bubble right now with a couple of guys, mainly Darius Shepard for the Packers. If Lazard is out, you already have no St. Brown out there who got injured last week. He's going to be out for about a month. It's really just going to be Darius Shepard and Jamon Moore for most of that game. They're not going to play much Jay Kumerow. They probably don't play much Trevor Davis. He's the wide receiver 5 right now, gets some run, but not a ton. So if indeed Lazard is out, give me Darius Shepard. Give me maybe some more interest in Jamon Moore, a guy who's probably going to get cut, but should see some extended run today. Christian Blake for Atlanta. You're not going to see Russell Gage in this one. So the wide receiver corps is pretty thin. Christian Blake is one of the guys on the bubble right now. Lots of news, and I talked with some of the beat writers, or one beat writer specifically via Twitter, and he said that one name to watch out for would be Christian Blake in the wide receiver corps for week 4. Could see the most snaps on the team and likely should see the most snaps on the team at the wide receiver position. All right. That's really it. We touched on most of them. Pharoh Cooper for Arizona is another guy to name. So a lot of people, again, hyped up on Andy Isabella. I am more so hyped up right now in the preseason and for the regular season in Keyshawn Johnson. But Pharoh Cooper has been another guy who he had 2 targets in week 1. He's been getting increased snaps every single week. 3 targets, I believe, in week 2. He had 5 targets last week. You'll probably see more snaps out of him today. Alan Lazard, I have on here as an I. That just means injury. He's in the concussion protocol. He's battling for that final 6 or 7 wide receiver spot. Huge physical guy. If he is indeed in and fully healthy and a full go, well, then I'm going to have interest in Alan Lazard and no interest in Jamon Moore and very slim to no interest in Darius Shepard for the Packers. And then Auden Tate right now, he's dealing with a knee injury. His MRI came back okay, but they're not sure if he's going to suit up or not. If Auden Tate is playing and he's a full go, I have interest in him for Cincinnati. If not, I'm not going to have much interest at all in Auden Tate today. So that's really it. I have a couple other C-listers listed. Don't really have to touch on them too much. It's mainly just the Tampa Bay guys. One B-lister that I did miss going over. 2 of them really was one, Marcus Johnson for Indiana. We say Deion Kane. I don't think he gets as much run. Marcus Johnson has been very consistent. He had 5 targets last week. He had 6 targets in week 1. He's going to continue to stay on the field and get even more run than in Deion Kane today. And then Derek Willis for Cleveland. Derek Willis had 6 targets last week. He had 3 in week 1. He's had overall 13 targets in the preseason. He's a guy now that since Cleveland sort of locked up their main guys, right? They know OBJ, they know Jarvis Landry, they know Rashard Higgins is number 3. Willis is kind of battling for this number 4 spot on the team. Antonio Callaway injured first 4 weeks, also just a complete bum right now. So Willis is going to have all the opportunity in the world. I think he sees the field he's been seeing the field for 2.5 to 3 quarters. I think he sees the field for almost the whole entire game today, but just no interest in terms of his quarterback play plus skill level. So that's where I'm at right now. Guys that stand out today for cash by far, Jacoby Myers, in my opinion, he stands out a ton. Richie James Jr. stands out a ton. Keelan Doss, I love for GPPs. Trey McBride, I like for cash as sort of not a guy with a ton of upside, but we'll see the field. Not a ton of upside, it means not the JJ Arcia White upside because he's not a huge receiver who's going to go get 100+ yards, but upside in terms of can he get 5 to 6 targets, catch 3 or 4 of them, and get a touchdown? Yeah, not a lot of guys are going to have that opportunity based on their run today. It's going to be hard to kind of pinpoint them. So this is where I'm at. If you enjoyed this video, please hit the like button. Please hit the subscribe button. And now, right now, before you even leave this video, link up down below. There's going to be a video at the end of this playlist or the end of this video, it'll take you right to the quarterback video. You can check out the running back video. I'll link both of those up right down below. Also linked down below will be my tiers. If you're looking for tight end information, that's going to be on Patreon only for today. So you can get my tiers for every single position. Link down below on Patreon. Check out my NFL Daily Fantasy course. It's how I've personally won money in DFS. It's how I've been teaching other people to win money in DFS, NFL Streets, 5.5 hours of videos in depth that I have not really shared anywhere else. So appreciate it. My name's Sal. You already know that. Best of luck tonight, everybody. Peace out, gang.
Hey, hold up. 1 second. Check out this page. If you haven't yet subscribed, hit the subscribe button, all right? And if you're interested in Patreon, if you're not already a Patreon, you can hit that button on Patreon, become a Patreon. It will take you right there. You can also check me out on Twitter at SalVetri.DFS. And hey, if you're interested, this next video that's about to pop up, why don't you check it out as well? See ya.